Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 6:01 now. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may all be seated. Welcome, everyone. I do need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to accolades. It's my understanding we have a whole bunch of them. We weren't provided them.
We have 5 pages of accolades.
Wow.
Okay.
Timberlake and Lakeland High School really brought it. We have district champions for softball, baseball, golf. First place for golf, North Idaho Hall of Fame, 21 total nominations between the 2 high schools. 35 of our students got CDA chamber scholarships. 30 total top scholars, which is the top 10% between the 2 high schools. NISTAR, we have 4 teachers that were chosen. So our two academic students get to choose the teacher or principal or staff member that they felt like had an impact on their growth. And so at LHS it was Shannon Matilla and Shannon Hall, and then at THS it was Molly Miller and Sean Lawler. FFA got awards for both high schools. FCCLA got multiple awards. Journalism, BPA. So I could read you the laundry list. All these kids just knocked it out of the park. But I would like this to just go to Maria so it could be part of public record, because we have the students' names,
yes.
And it gives a little detail about what each award is kind of for. But there's literally like 50 kids on here, so
That's awesome.
for time purposes, I won't read it, but
Thank you.
Good job.
All right.
Is that posted on our website?
I just got the information finalized, so I will make sure that it is posted on
Yeah,
our
that would
website.
be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, that
Yeah, we
a
should
little
have it
highlight.
running. Yeah.
I
highlight of it,
think
yeah.
Jackie has, but I'll make sure. I know it's on Facebook, but website would be good.
All right. Moving into the old business, we have the superintendent follow-up. Just take a moment for it to come up. Do we have any conversation with the follow-up?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. I would like to address item number 2 on her follow-up. I asked Lisa when our renewal for the Rathdrum Chamber was coming up, because I saw that Spirit Lake had come through and we were paying $100, and we pay $1,200 to the Rathdrum Chamber, which I know puts us in a special bracket, etc. I did not tell her that we were moving back to a nonprofit status. I said the board needed to have a conversation about it. Specifically, I wanted to bring it up that we would have the ability to save $1,100 if we would drop down to a nonprofit status. Like, you know, we're paying Spirit Lake $100, and I think we're part of Bayview. I think we were part of Athol, but I'm not sure if we still are.
Yeah.
But making it more equitable throughout all the cities that we actually support. I get what her reasoning is as to why we pay the $1,200 to the Rathdrum Chamber, but I feel that's kind of slighting the other cities, and I don't agree with that, especially since this is taxpayer dollars. And if we're willing to forego, you know, her recommendation was to forego the newspaper at $300. I think we should be foregoing the $1,100 and just dropping us down to a more economical position until there's a need, I guess, that arises. I don't know. But I wanted us to have a conversation. I did not state that we would be going back to the $100. So I just wanted to clarify that. But I did ask her about, you know, when is the renewal, and she wasn't sure. She said she'd let me know. And I this is what we're getting.
First of the year, I think.
Because I thought I had seen it come
Yeah,
through for
first of the year,
$1,200.
generally
Yeah,
in January.
Beginning of the year.
right. But I couldn't remember when it was.
But it's better to have those conversations now so that we're ready for that
Right.
when January
Yes,
does come.
Exactly. So, I don't know if we want to give her direction with respect to that, because I did not. I just wanted to know when it was up for renewal to have the conversation. But that was the only thing I wanted to talk about with respect to her follow-up. Does anybody have any other conversation they'd like to have?
Well, I mean, I would be surprised if the ability to speak at the chamber luncheons and events and all that would be, you know,
Kiboshed.
that the school district wouldn't be able to give their updates or, and if we had to pay extra for somebody that attended something.
Well, we did have to, I mean,
No,
even though we
we
pay
do.
the $1,200, we have to pay for
Pay.
the
Oh,
luncheon
pay the
tickets and all that
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we just do like we used to do, and I mean, I'm with you on that, and, yeah, just back to the regular nonprofit status seems fine with me.
Anybody else have any other input?
Yes.
Figured you would, Bob.
First of all, I'd probably have to recuse myself from any,
I would agree.
on the board of the
Right.
chamber as well. But having said that, I would stress that having a good community partnership with the chamber is ultimately important. I was looking for a piece that they recently did in support of the levy. Did you happen to find that on the website?
It was on there.
Yeah, and I'd love to forward it to you, but we went to a lot of work based on the appeal that Lisa and I made to have the chamber positively support the levy this time around. And they have a very nice, well-done piece with testimonials from business people supporting the school district and the programs that we have and so on and so forth. I just would not feel good about slapping the hand that helped us at this juncture.
Well, in all fairness, I've brought this up almost annually because
Yeah.
it bothers me that we're a school district that falls under the umbrella of a nonprofit classification, and that we're giving $1,200 to the city here in Rathdrum, and we are
It's not-
aligned,
not the city.
or not to the
Yeah.
city, to the chamber, and we're aligned with that chamber, but yet we're also in Spirit Lake, we're also in Athol, we're also in Bayview, and we're not making that same type of an alignment, and we're not as go-getter with all the other cities. It's just Rathdrum, and I don't think that's appropriate, given that this is taxpayer dollars. So I think it should be, I mean, if we want to go above and beyond with all the other cities, then let's step up our game. But I don't see that we're doing that, and I think it would be more appropriate to bring it back down. We could save $1,100. I mean, that may not seem like a lot, but given the situation that we're in, I think it's significant. But that's just my opinion. And it's been my opinion for a few years. This isn't the first time I brought it up.
Maybe take the 1,200 and split it.
Among the different chambers.
Yeah.
But with Rathdrum Chamber, I know there's different tiers that you have to buy into. So, and
We're giving them less, but
And the other ones, I think it's just a flat.
a flat fee.
Flat fee.
Yeah, I think
Right.
the only difference in some of the other ones is whether you're a business within the zip code or not, but the school district obviously is in all of them, so.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so that would, I don't know that they, unless they changed the last couple of years, I'm not too sure. But yeah, it looks like they did a good write-up too for the levy in 2023, the Rathdrum
Chamber.
Mm-hmm,
I know Lisa spoke for the 2023 one as well.
mm-hmm.
They've always been very supportive of the
Yeah.
group.
But in defense of that, I do think the other cities have as well, but they don't get the same accolades that
Right.
we give Rathdrum. And not that that's, giving Rathdrum the accolades isn't a bad thing. It's that we
Right.
don't do a good job of giving all the other cities
You want it to be
accolades for
matched.
their support. Right. And I just think that it would be more appropriate, given that this is taxpayer dollars, to go in that direction.
So this is on an update, it's not an action item?
No,
Just a, okay.
Lisa's already said in her update that she's let Ashley know that the board
Okay.
is moving back to a non.
No, she didn't say that. She said, I let Ashley know the board asked about
Okay.
moving back. So she didn't
Okay.
say that we are or that we want to, she just said that we asked. about
Well,
it.
but my frustration is the board didn't. I just asked Lisa about when was it renewal because I wanted to talk to the whole board about it. So that
Okay.
was, I just wanted that clear. I wasn't out there making conversation and making direction for the board.
Gotcha, so that was just the follow-up to the question.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
So we have the financial follow-up. There's a lot of
Yeah.
information in here. Thank you. Do we have any comments, cost, or questions on the follow-up?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if, just because they use that, they said that the slight increase was because of the tariffs. I'd like to know which, if they had that information. Or just when I read it, I thought, oh, really?
Jessica Grant, I'm Chief Finance
Yeah.
Officer. It's the metal that's coming in for it. So I did my due diligence and did ask, and then I did follow up with all the other companies that bid on the bus RFP that we had out there. They're all experiencing similar increases that they're passing on to
Yeah.
contractors.
I was just curious, cause they've all said they're holding their prices, so for them to come and say,
Yeah, no, so it
I
was
was
the
just
most recent
curious.
purchase of materials they have. So we should have, if we agree to the price increase, which, it's a small amount, it really truly is. We do have the funds to cover it. And if we wanted to go with someone else, we would have to pay the same price increase. This was the company that could get us the buses the fastest. We'll get all 3 of them this year, instead of waiting through until next year to get them. So that's the thought process behind it. So we should have the first bus from them in the next couple weeks, and the other 2 before school starts.
The frustration with Harlow's is, it seems like every time we
Yeah.
purchase from
So
them, they come
it
back
was
with
Bryson's
increases.
last time that
Oh, it
had-
was? It wasn't
Mhm.
Harlow's?
It wasn't Harlow's,
Okay,
it was Bryson
okay.
last time that had the increase, and we had to go through the whole bond call and all that stuff, so, I did
Okay.
check with our attorney on this. It's
Good.
considered, an act of God, because they can't predict the market, so we can't call the bond on that. So, I did look into that though.
Okay.
Yeah, so please know I did my due diligence to make sure that we were still getting the best bang for our buck, and
No, I
getting
appreciate
what
the
we
information you've
wanted to
given us.
purchase.
Yeah.
how many buses was that again? Cause we had so many
think it's
different
3,
buses.
wasn't it?
It's 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I
think it's
can't,
3.
I apologize. It's been
Yeah,
a
no, that's
couple
fine.
months.
Yeah.
I just know we will get what we paid for.
Yeah, we-
We haven't paid for it yet. We pay them
Okay.
upon delivery, but.
Do we, later on, there's talk of an increase for our, iCrimp insurance. But do we have any idea who they're going with and what we're looking at cost-wise on that?
So I anticipate that they'll go to a similar model like NIC did, where you kind of have your insurance from a couple different brokers.
Okay.
That's what I'm anticipating since iCrimp dropped Morton and Sons. It was kind of a mutual dispairing, I believe. I am talking to another company that could continue to insure us with iCrimp, but I think the premium increase would be more than staying with Morton and going through their route. I do know our HR director and assistant superintendent recently attended the EdLaw conference. Brooke was able to talk to Chad Randstrom from Morton and Sons at that
Okay.
time, or Morton and Company, sorry, not Morton and Sons, but she could maybe potentially add some additional to that.
Sure.
So, Ms.
Introduce.
Brooke Kemp, Director of HR.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Randstrom did tell me that they are looking at a carrier over in Washington that does a lot of the Washington schools. And he said we probably will see an increase this year, but he anticipates it's going to stabilize, and it will be less than what ICRIMP was going to provide us. So it should stabilize, he said, because ICRIMP is somewhat monopolizing all the government entities in the state of Idaho, that they have more leverage within their increases. So that's why they decided to shop around.
Well,
He felt like the Spokane company or the Washington company also could match some of the similar services that we have been used to, where ICRIMP, it was going to either be more expensive or some of
Or
the
they're
services were being dropped. And so as a whole, just talked about for us to continue what we have been so used to as far as the insurance piece and coverage, that it was just time to start branching out and looking at some other companies, and so that we have our own leverage. So
Well, we took a significant increase this
Absolutely.
last year from ICRIMP, so
It would have been another.
It would have been another
significant
one.
increase this year, so that even switching it would be less.
no, but what my point was that if there's any way that if a new insurance company is coming in and we're gonna be at that same sort of rate with that significant increase, I'd like to know, just kind of have some insight as to what the factor is to put us up so high, given that the reason we were told we were rated higher is because we had to share the deficits that went on in the insurance world.
from the fire.
So I just am,
Yep.
you know.
So as soon as they finalize everything with the company that they're looking at, I anticipate it'll be around May 27th is what I think he said in his last email.
Okay.
We will be able to compare and contrast that to the coverage that we currently have with ICRIMP.
Okay.
What I don't know is what coverage we would potentially lose if we went with someone else. But I am, like I said, in talks with another company that does still have access to the ICRIMP pool,
Okay.
to see what they could potentially rate us at. It's just a lot of additional paperwork right now.
Right.
And
Not a
I've
good
got a
time
lot
for
on my plate.
paperwork.
So I'm just trying to work through all of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Does anybody have any other things?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I know the one piece that, administration and the board has leaned heavy on is the, legal. So as long as whoever it is, up to par with Idaho law.
Brooke, tell me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was they were gonna stay with the same legal
Okay.
team. That was a big,
So
that was
Julian
the
Hall.
superintendent's
Okay.
what he
Yes.
said or
So
something.
Anderson, Julian
Okay.
Hall would still be,
Okay.
Right.
which was great. They're
Yeah.
fantastic.
Okay, that would be my only, obviously there's a lot to it, but I just know that we're always asking them, like we just did with the bus issue and
Right.
and
Well,
all that
and-
kind of stuff.
And they're experts with Idaho law
Yes.
specific to schools, so
Yes.
that was a big point of concern.
Okay,
Okay.
that was my only.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just highlight the one thing we didn't talk about for my follow-up, which was the school district modernization funds. There has been a lot of talk in the community about the $91 million that's going to school districts, and so we had that question last night at the town hall. Just some confusion about that, because I don't think our community fully understands that this is a very specific pot of money for a very specific purpose.
Right.
So even though the state's out there saying, we gave 91 million to schools, they gave 91 million to schools based on our average daily attendance. We received an additional 1.8 million on that, but it is specific toward facilities for 7 capital projects that'll last
Right.
more than 7 years. So
Right.
I just wanted to have that out there, that it's not extra money that we can pay salaries and benefits with.
Correct.
It's in its own separate account.
Right.
We have to treat it with special, there's special guidelines around it. It's
Right.
subject to IRS audit, which is a different thing. It's very similar to a bond. So I just want it out there.
Okay.
That
All
it's
the
a very
wonderful
specific, it's
streams.
wonderful that the state did this, but
Yes.
in the grand scheme of things, it's barely scratching the surface of what we need from a facility standpoint. Looking at the work that we did on our 10-year plan, that's $100 million worth of work over the next 30 years, and we're getting 20
Right, right.
to address the next 10. So while it's great, it just scratches the surface of what we need and what other districts in the state need as well. So
We'll take the scratch.
yeah, I know. Absolutely. I'm not complaining about it.
No, I
I'm just
know.
saying across the state with the facilities that we
Because
have.
that is in, you know, to the community's credit, that is a big load off of them.
Yes.
But I mean, the name itself, Modernization Facilities Funds, you know,
Yep.
it says it's only facilities, or like you said, capital projects that last a certain amount of time. But that should, you know, that is a big relief off of them too, because and that's the other thing, maybe if that question comes up again, we didn't even run the plant facilities
Right.
fund because of this, or the
Yeah.
levy because of this.
Trustee Jones actually brought that up at the
Yeah.
town hall and just made that point of how fiscally responsible the board has been and how it has just been, just that, you know, ongoing maintenance has been a difficulty for us without that plant facility, so
Well, ever
how critical
since-
this money was.
Yeah, when I asked to put the 2 million cut, I have gotten a lot of feedback, and the community loved that was up there.
Oh, perfect.
And they saw it that, you know, oh, I got comments, you know, oh, looks like the board actually did some work. Oh, it looks like the district, you know, blah, blah, blah. So people have been very receptive to being able to see a line item of what was.
And Superintendent Arnold has included it in her levy presentations of just spotlighting and then talking about all of the cuts that have happened over the course of the last 3 years, but especially that November to December time.
Yeah.
This is the
And that's
2
what they
million
were
from the
looking for.
9.52
Right.
to 7.52. So
I just wanted it out there that it's not 91 million just for funsies. There's a very specific purpose for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe that needs to be a blurb on the community page. Just this, you know, just a little blurb on there that what the,
91 million.
yeah, well, what the modernization facilities funds is and how much Lakeland actually got, you know. I mean,
Okay,
91 million
91.
sounds great, but
Yeah.
we didn't get that.
Right, we got next.
So I did just include that in my financial facts newsletter that went out. I'm sure I can work with Jackie to create some sort of infographic to go on our social media. But if in that financial facts newsletter, I covered it pretty in depth of what we received, what the purpose was, what process we had to go through to get it, and how we're supposed to spend it. So
Yeah.
it's all in the April
Right, but we
newsletter.
have a huge part of our community
Absolutely.
who's not tied to the district, who doesn't
Yep.
do social media, but they have internet, they can go to our
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
So that newsletter is on our website, and it
Okay,
is
good.
on social, it gets shared to social media as well.
Yeah.
But we can definitely pull that out and make it its own post.
As a
Yeah.
standalone.
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I think the more that we make it relevant for people that are looking, and they don't have to dig and search and hope that they get where it's at.
Yeah.
If we just, here it is.
They like the
It's-
community page. I've gotten
Yeah.
a lot of feedback of the different, you know, they feel like they are getting the information simplified,
Right,
you know.
right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Jessica's doing a great job.
Moving on to the consent agenda, we have the minutes of the previous meetings, minutes of subcommittee meetings. Any questions on the previous meeting minutes?
No.
Okay.
I had one. I gotta find it.
Okay. I have one on the policy committee for 424. You have Shannon LaFontaine there. I thought it was Shannon Ryder.
On 424.
I just thought that because the last meeting I was at was with Mary and Shannon Ryder.
So that's my mistake then. Sorry, Maria.
I think, yeah. Because I think Shannon
It was one
had.
of the Shannons.
I think I was at a track meet.
I think you
I'm
were,
sure there was a
yeah.
track meet
Yeah,
that day.
so that was my mistake.
I can vouch
Not a
that I
problem.
can do
Just
two places at
one.
once.
I just wanted to clear that up, that's all.
Yeah, it wasn't on this. Never mind. Sorry.
Okay.
My mistake.
All right, so if there's anybody else have any comments or questions or input on the minutes? Okay.
No, but I kept referring to the community page that's stuck in my head. It's the levy page.
The
Sorry.
levy page,
Yeah,
okay.
that has the information on it that the people can.
Okay. So can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve consent
Second.
agenda.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to new business, we have revised the attendance policy. And I would like to point out that Shannon LaFontaine and Dustin Frank really kind of took the bull by the horns with this, given what our current policy has, our principal assistants, all the hoops they're jumping through to make sure that secondary is doing their, what?
There was a big bee.
Oh, I'm like, what? So I just want to thank them for jumping in and doing that. And then Shannon Ryder and Josh Hegstead came alongside them, and they all four collaboratively worked on getting the bugs out as we went through them. We actually drafted secondary attendance policy first and then brought elementary in. So we didn't spend as much time on elementary because secondary pretty much had it lined out. But the reason the attendance policy came back is what was happening is our assistant principals are spending their entire work career hunting down students to have them fill out these petitions and all of this. They're just the attendance police is really what their jobs become, and I don't think that's a very good use of their skills when that's all they can focus on.
That's something that we could pay somebody
So
differently.
Well, and what we've done is kind of streamline the attendance policy so that teachers actually have some control as to when students are gone and when they come back and when homework's expected and all of that whatnot. And then we just made it more so that without the building input, we can sit here and say what we want it to be, but without understanding if it's practical and can be implemented, I'm just very grateful that they did the work on this policy because it's something that they can implement and they can navigate, and it will help when things do come to the board with respect to students. There's going to be a concise list as far as either an excused absence or unexcused
I was just
absence.
gonna say, I appreciate that we'll have consistency across the board on those abbreviations.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. So,
yes.
so yeah, that's gonna.
And it may take a little bit to get everybody in line, but the goal is so that everything will be streamlined and consistent.
I would just add to this. We spent, I think it was roughly 9 weeks on this policy. They consistently came. So again,
Yeah.
I appreciate Michelle acknowledging. They were, an hour and a half of all of us just really trying to brainstorm and really trying to go through all the what if scenarios so that we weren't writing a policy through the lens of theory, but really through the application piece and what that really looks like and what would implementation be. We also really wanted to focus on adding some teeth at the elementary level because right now we do have kids who are missing substantial portions of their day, upwards to 50 absences in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and to some degree you don't come back from that, and so how do we put some teeth in there? But the excused and the unexcused, so we really talked about, we used verified, unverified. We went through multiple vocabulary and semantics of what do we use to just, here's what we're willing to excuse and not excuse that goes to that attendance, and then here's the reasons that we'll excuse. And so we used to have excused and unexcused. We anticipate that there could be some pushback just because people feel like, well, if I call it in, it should be excused,
Right.
which is why we've talked about verified, unverified. So, but we spent lots of time just trying to wordsmith this and make it clear. Outside of just the the policy committee, our high schools came together and really tried to work on how do we make this feasible for implementation, so
Well,
I
the big-
really appreciate you guys.
The biggest struggle is, you know, when students aren't in their seats, then we aren't being funded for them, and yet we're still having to pay teachers, we're still having to pay, you know, everything else that makes the school run without the resource to acquire the income for that.
That point is well taken and certainly accurate, and I have a question in that regard.
Yeah.
We start out by saying that attendance is really important and that kids really should be in their seat at 90% of the time. But then we have this whole laundry list of absences that don't count. Those two things are incompatible in my mind. We either believe they should be there 90% of the time or we don't. And it looks like we don't, because we're gonna, you know, you could count up 15, 20 days of those absences that are not counted toward the 90%. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Except the struggle at secondary, Bob, is, at least this is my understanding, that everything counts towards the 90%. So we have assistant principals spending their entire job from the start of school to the end of school monitoring and running around and chasing after kiddos to get their credits, because when they've gone over, then they have to, according to our current policy, they have to fill out a petition, they have to do, there's all these hoops that everybody's jumping through, and that's all they are hoops. And so to make it more of a reasonable approach, given that yes, we want them there, but we realize there are going to be circumstances that may prevent them from being there, such as bereavement or a medical absence, or, you know, if the student gets suspended or they have to go to court.
I don't understand at all, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think that's by law. We can't count that against them. But trying to help the attendance police not have that be their sole responsibility for the entire school year, because I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, I don't disagree with any of that, but on the other hand, what you're speaking to is the issue of personnel as opposed to the issue of whether or not a kid's attendance 90% of the time. And once again, we either believe that's valid or we don't.
But if you have personnel trying to enforce the policy 100% of the time, and the policy is strictly hoop jumping, how does that benefit our personnel or our students?
That some other way.
The other piece to this, and you guys, I asked them to come up here, they can speak to this, is when it's a bereavement situation, or it's they're going out for BPA state and they're going to be
School
gone for 5
activities.
days, and they're a
Right.
kid that has BPA, then they're in FFA, and then they're in a sport or whatever. So accumulative, like they're missing days. So if we're counting all of them, there's letters going home, and then parents are like, well, you knew what was going on.
Right.
I talked to this, and so then they're fielding phone calls from parents, where then they're spending lots of time saying, well, it doesn't really count. Like, we're not really going to do this because we recognize it is excused. So we really spent a lot of time talking about what are those scenarios where we currently excuse it because it's just intuitive to a high school setting.
Let me approach this a little differently. This laundry list that are essentially excused absences, are they counted in attendance for those days?
So Shannon LaFontaine, assistant principal at high school. The school activity ones do count because they're tied to a school activity and they're coded with an A. Unless they've applied to be a self-directed learner, all of the rest of those do not. But the way our current policy is written, if they go over the 9 absences, even if it was because they had to drive to California for a family funeral that we're probably never going to tell a kid they shouldn't or couldn't do, if they go over 9 for those things, the letter goes out saying their credits could be withheld or are being withheld is what it actually says in the letter. So then they get the letter, they have to do the petition to appeal the letter. Like, that process is our current reality, except for school-related activities and a couple of other codes that are there. So we tried to look at those scenarios where if the kid's out for surgery, we know they're out for surgery, they can't, I mean, it's an unavoidable absence, but right now they're still having to get the letter, do the petition, come back through us, and we knew ahead of time that this was happening. We've already communicated with parents, so we're trying to look at those pieces in a way that is a more efficient way to say which kids are habitual offenders or avoidable absences that we can really improve in attendance in an effective way. Because most of those, and I shouldn't say most, but a lot of those letters we send out, we already knew what was happening, and they probably are going to have their petition approved based on the circumstances that they were under. And it feels like if we want to hold to where our policy is now, the number of kids we would withhold credit on is enormous, and it would drastically impact our graduation rate because our kids are going to lose all 6 credits.
So you just made the statement that if, like the in-school absence, if they're classed with that, they still count as being in school. So you said the ones with the A's. So an activity absence counts, they're still counted as in school.
Participating in school activities.
Suspended absence would count that they're still in school. Medical absence
No.
does not. Okay.
Unless it's part of the.
School excused.
Right, that's the disability code. It's different.
Wouldn't it be part of if they would be if it's part of the 504, correct?
Kelsey Badger, Director of Special Education. So 504 and IEPs, we do have a marking for marked absent due to disability.
Which is the D that's
Which
on
is
that
the
list.
D on that list, and so some of our students do fall under that. We do have some that have disabilities.
Okay, so
diagnosed to be
disability
on
related, they would count as
Correct.
being in school.
Right, and that's on that
Self-directed learner.
list. Like that was accounted for when we created that list.
Okay, and court appearance, does that count or not? Okay, even though by law it can't count against them, but it doesn't count for us.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Like they're required
court
to be in
appearance,
court,
school
so-
excused, prearranged bereavement, and medical. So 5 of the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So half of the list.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 5.
And if it's a recurring thing, like a medical, that would be a recurring because they're going to counseling, or, I mean, there's a couple things there. If they maintain that GPA requirement, they can apply to be a self-directed learner. And if that was happening, it was going to be, we don't want to see these kiddos having to petition every semester. We also don't want to see them negatively impacting our ADA. And so hopefully we can guide them in the direction of a self-directed learner, but they have to meet the criteria for that to fit.
Because there was actual talk of the fact that maybe we should just not have an attendance policy. Because
Yeah.
if we're just making everyone hoop jump, then what is the point? I mean,
Finding that
We're
balance where we
definitely
can put some
making
teeth to
parents
it.
angry
Once
when we're.
again, you either believe in good attendance or you don't. What we've done is allowed for the creation of a culture of I can be gone whenever I need to for whatever purpose, and it'll be excused. And they don't care whether they're counted in attendance on that day or not. It doesn't mean anything to them, but it does mean something to us.
well, we didn't have control over COVID, and that opened the door for this Pandora's box.
I think to combat that, and it's the next policy up, that we really wanted to look at the self-directed learner. And so as we're working in conjunction coupled with this attendance policy, if you know that there's medical or if you know that you're having events coming up, that then we're getting parents to classify their kid as a self-directed learner so that we're not being penalized ADA wise, but then they're not being penalized in hoop jumping when they know it's a planned situation, because the reality is they're missing it anyways. So we were trying to minimize some of the hoop jumps, but then not impact ADA in a way that has a negative.
Can we implement it for like 6 months and then see how it's working and then come back to the table and
Dave,
adjust
we
it?
can bring any
All right.
policy
I'm
to
just
the
asking.
policy committee anytime we want.
I'm just
You
asking.
have the power.
And when it comes back, we'll invite you.
Okay. I'm just
Yeah, no, I.
You know,
Yeah.
see if it's working, and
And
if it's
sometimes
not,
it might
then
be
adjust
good to
it.
try it and then you
Yeah.
work out the kinks and
Right.
then bring it back and go, there's a little tweak that we need to make here or there. I mean, that's best practice with systems anyway, so we 100% could do that.
Yep.
Because attendance
Um,
came back new after COVID when I started in this position.
Right.
And so we didn't know how that was gonna look and how it was gonna work, and I mean, I'm kind of a data person anyway, so tracking the data over those 3 years, I did think, oh, it's gonna get better, we're having great well, the kids that have to fill out the petition that are put on probation, and they get better, and they're replaced with a new group of kids the next year, or that particular kid who had surgery, he's good and fine, but the next year somebody else had surgery. So it's like our numbers aren't actually decreasing, it's just changing who they are, minus a handful of repeat offenders, and those are the ones we're really hoping that this policy will
But we
help
are
us.
minimizing repeat
Right.
offenders,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
so.
Well, and we wanted Shannon Ryder, principal assistant at both Timberlakes. We wanted to make the letter more impactful and meaningful when it comes, because right now, a lot of times when the letter comes, we're like, okay, I'm sorry, it just automatically sends this out. You can kind of ignore it. It's a hoop job. Just fill it out, send it back. You'll be approved. If it's like for a surgery or a funeral or something that we already knew about. So this way, we're hoping when you get that letter,
It's a serious offense.
Yes, yeah, so just helps with the severity of that, but we have, I mean, for years been working on trying to improve our attendance, but going through this process really led to some good conversations about ways, because we're never gonna create a policy that improves attendance on its own.
Right.
So what are we doing on the other end to incentivize students to be at school, make the learning, you know, more meaningful? We added the 2-day rule for late work, or you know, when they come back
Makeup
for work
work.
that they need to turn in their makeup
Right.
work. So that should help. Students shouldn't be able to miss 30 days and still be passing all their classes.
Right.
So we're hoping to attack this from a lot of angles. Cause
Yeah, we wanted some of those accountability measures, but I think we spent the first 2 or 3 policy meetings really just talking about how do we ensure that kids feel really connected, how do they connect it to their peers, connected to their teachers, there's a safe, how do we want our school place where kids want to go so that we don't have situations where they don't want to be there. So what are some things, and we brainstorm at elementary, at middle school, at high school, what that could look like. So in conjunction, having, I mean, we talked about every school having some type of attendance plan of just incentivizing kids being there and being present and being connected, understanding that that is a huge part of this as well. So it was great
We've been
discussion.
putting out on ADA, that I know it's part of the levy information that's going out, and I've had some of those discussions with our students, and I think just educating them, the cost of them not being in school,
Right.
what it has to the district. For some of those kids, they really are invested that they're a kid that can show up 85% of the time and still get A's and B's, because they're a pretty solid student, and they don't realize that that extra absence from them actually is pulling money. I've had several, they're like, I had no idea. And I do think in some cases they're like, okay, I might show up more often, like, which was great to hear, that they realize that their absence is impacting more than, they, at that point they're like, who else does it impact? It's just me and I get my work done, so why does anybody care? So I think it's an educational piece also.
So let me see if I can summarize this. Based on this policy, you don't anticipate that it will have any impact on our average daily attendance one way or the other.
Correct.
I mean, hopefully.
And you don't anticipate, pardon?
Hopefully.
I don't think it'll negatively impact it. I think it's the current reality of where we're at. I don't think it's going to encourage kids to miss more school than they currently are.
But like, hopefully it will
Yeah.
have a positive
Mhm.
impact. We just don't anticipate that it will solve the whole problem.
So we're currently running at about what, 92.4%?
I think we're closer to 93.
93.
Just, are we at 93, 94?
92.
92.
Yeah. So if by next Christmas, we don't see any marked increase in average daily attendance, that's gonna be okay?
Or it's a conversation to have about how do we increase it. I mean, our goal in this is
I don't
how do
think
we
I don't think any policy's ever gonna increase it, because it's
It's
people
their
and
prerogative.
families you're dealing with. There's nothing we can do except try and funnel as much as we can.
Well,
I
you either
think-
gotta, you either have to have a deterrent or you have to have an incentive.
And we're trying to have both.
The steps to this, if they violate, are weighty.
Consequential.
So, yes.
And you
So
don't
I do
anticipate
think-
that this policy will have any impact on academic performance one way or the other?
The makeup policy could, and we haven't really had in policy where if they were absent, they only have 2 days to make up the work, and some teachers were willing to work
Yeah.
with kids for, you
See, I have
know.
a question about that when I read that. Let's say I'm gone for 5 days to California for bereavement leave, and I come back and I have 2 days to get it in. But during the course of time that I'm gone, I don't even know what the assignments are. How's that gonna work?
There's a piece in there that the admin team and teachers can make exceptions for extenuating circumstances. And they could access
Always
it
an
online.
exception to the rule,
Right.
isn't there?
Yeah, and we know so many of our kids have, whether it's Google Classroom or if they know it's a bereavement, hopefully they would know ahead of time to have had some communication with teachers to do those things, but again, if it's some.
You know, I like the 2-day rule. You know, I've been in school districts where we had 2 days for every day you missed to get your work back in.
And that was discussed when we went through that, yeah.
It became a
I don't know
management
what's the
issue.
best way to
Yeah,
go there.
and that
2
was-
days seems like it's fine if I'm only gone 1 day, or maybe 2 days. But if I'm gone for longer than that, it seems like it might be a little tough to make that happen, so the teacher's gonna have to make the exception. Now the rule doesn't mean anything.
It means something to the
You gotta-
teacher.
It does give some
there
more
are
teachers
collateral
some teeth, which I
issues
think
that
they're
need
looking
to
for.
be thought about.
We have had students that have requested that their parents don't take trips. Bereavement's a different thing, but like,
Yeah.
can we only take trips now when we're off because it's too much to try to make up now when I'm gone? So we have had, especially student athletes, like requests like, don't take me out of school, I can't do it. So maybe their parents are talking, or the students are talking more to the parents.
Yeah, well, you know, and, yeah, there are arguments in all directions. I mean, you know, you can say, okay, we're gonna take a family vacation to Fiji. Never been to Fiji before, that's gonna be educational. Yeah, probably, but not in the way you think. But at any rate,
Hey,
I know,
education's
I've been there.
education.
It's pretty awesome.
I don't know this off the top of my head, so I can check, but I do think that this might be one of the annual policies that you guys have to look at every year anyways.
I would appreciate looking at it.
But if it
Yeah.
isn't, I can bring that policy back and add it so that it's one of the policies that you annually review. I think it's on there, but I don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Okay, any other conversation on the attendance policy? I will state that it did go out for survey, and the survey, I was told the information that came back was rather positive. There was no negative, which is nice when that occurs.
People were appreciative of the work.
Yeah.
I would move to approve attendance policy 3050, both for
Second.
elementary and secondary.
I have a couple of questions. I just want to make
Sure.
sure I understand this right. 'Cause Shannon made the comment, if the students miss 30 days and they're still passing their classes, they shouldn't be. And then is my understanding that if the parent calls in to excuse the absence, it's not excused, right? Is that correct?
Kelsey Badger, Federal Programs Director. I think that was just a general, like 30 days is a lot of days.
No, I know that was.
But yeah, so if a student, if a parent excuses it, it's still, and they are absent, so.
It's still marked against.
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Okay.
for our policy, so you
Okay.
can't have more than that or you will get the letter.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's just those marked now that we won't count against, which is the medical, the ones, that are listed
Just
there
the
that won't
ones
count.
underneath that are not
Mhm. Yeah.
everything else, okay.
Yeah, so if you are unfortunately sick for an extended period of time,
Yeah.
that is going to go
And if
into
the
kids'
kids-
policy.
If the student is absent, that puts them in this however many absences to be truant, and they're passing all their classes, it's still up to the teacher or whomever to decide whether the kid actually is gonna receive their credits.
Correct, it goes to yeah, they have to petition for the credits, and they explain why. Obviously, if there's a sickness and there's a reason behind it, or surgery or things like that, then those
Okay.
will be granted.
Okay.
Well, and if a kid is out for a significant amount of time because they've gotten sick and they bring a medical note, then that doesn't count against them,
Mhm.
right? So,
Those were my questions, I'm sorry, thank you, you had a motion and a second.
yes, we do. We have a motion and a second. Any other conversation that needs to be had? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
There.
3 in favor, 2 opposed. Motion carries. We have the fertilization and weed control services. It appears that our facilities director wants to bring back the weed control and fertilization. My only question is, was he provided anything to show what these quotes were? Because we weren't given that, we were just given dollar amounts.
Jessica Greentham, Chief Finance Officer. I didn't receive that documentation. Our Director Haig is not here tonight. He had some family stuff that he had to take
Okay.
care of. So I'm doing my best to cover the pieces that he did on this. I do believe he had, they're not official contracts, they're just quotes.
Right.
I could bring those to the May 17th meeting if you'd like.
Well, the only reason I'm asking is one is $141,740 and one's $31,400.
Yeah, they're
So-
exactly the same. I can tell you from my understanding, everything was bid exactly the same as the services that we had previously. So it's the same square footage, same application zone, same materials, all of that stuff. I don't know why that one is so much higher.
When you say it was exactly the same as before, if I understood this correctly, we're going to 4 applications rather
So,
than 2?
as far as coverage, what was being sprayed, so exactly the same as that. The only difference is 4 applications instead of 2.
Okay.
The service was the
The service area, the service square footage, all of that is the
The number
same.
of acres.
It's just number of applications increased from 2 to 4. And I would like to remind the board, and I failed to put this in here because I had just thought of it as I was sitting here. We did previously pay $23,000 for just 2 services. So I did want to add that context to increasing it to 4. It actually isn't that big of an increase compared to what we were paying for 2. So
It didn't double.
it did
Right,
double.
right.
Well, depending on what company you pick.
We could go with Aspen and then it's,
yeah.
more than double.
So, and I apologize, Tim could definitely speak better to this. I'm doing my best with this one.
No, that's fine.
If we approve this, it's for 1 year only.
For 1 year, yes. Which if you've seen some of our
Are they
fields-
gonna spray the weeds before they go to seed?
If we can get this approved tonight, they will be out as soon as possible.
Dandelions are
They're-
annual, so they don't replant themselves, since that's the one that everybody
No, but they distribute
complains about.
seeds.
But it doesn't matter that, it's not a perennial weed, so it doesn't matter.
What?
You're not gonna spray this year and kill next year's
No, I know.
crop.
But we would be able to put down some treatment in the fall that would hopefully prevent them from coming up, and that's something that we have not been doing. So that's what we're looking at by doing the 4 applications, is doing an early season and a late season, which we have not been doing. So that would help better the grounds.
Didn't we have conversation with him? I thought we were hiring a person that had this applicator's license, and that's why we didn't have to do that.
We talked about wanting to do that,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So we never went that,
No.
this is coming back, okay.
Based on his work on it, since being in charge of facilities at our district, it's just not feasible to do
Yeah.
what was recommended through the budget process last year, so.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot. It is a lot. We do not have anybody certified for it. We don't have a license to order the materials for it. So there's a lot more to it than just a cut and dry, let's go throw some stuff on the grass.
Move to approve the contract.
Second.
2 seconds.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Everybody thanks you. I'll just tell you, that's probably one of the #1 phone calls I've been getting
Will
lately.
the weeds all be sick by the end of next week?
I'm hoping. I will let Tim know right now that he can pull the trigger on that one.
Do it.
Moving on to the concrete beds. I would just like clarification because it didn't state, but the base bid, please tell me that is Lakeland High School.
Yes, so
Okay,
the base
thank you.
bid, if you look at page 2, the base bid included Lakeland Middle School, and those two schools, because those were the ones that needed a lot of work, and then we added alternates because we weren't sure. I do want to remind the board, the initial quotes that we got, or bids that we got for these the first time we ran this last fall, were over $1 million each. So you can see by using the specs that we received with the work with Architects West that we were able to get more reasonable bids, I guess, in my mind, that better align with the budget that the district has for this project. So we did put those two in the base bid, and then we had bid alternates. The work with WM Welch, they're able to do all of those simultaneously. So every single school that is on this list will be done at the exact same time if that's the contract we choose to approve, which is our recommendation.
So they're not moving from school to school to
Nope,
school, they're
it's
just
all
coming
done.
and doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't find anything within these documents that explained what the base bid was.
Okay.
I was
I
hoping
can
that's what it
include
was.
that in our
but-
financial follow-up for the May 17th meeting if you'd like to see it.
No, I just needed
Okay.
clarification because it's not
Well,
a
I keep
benefit.
saying the 17th, that's the 21st. I want it to be the 17th because,
I
It's
would
the
I would
21st.
recommend for future when we're providing information on bids, if we've sent out a request for proposals or bids, that gets included with the final
Yeah,
bids.
typically those
So that we
come-
know
yeah,
what
typically
was
those come
requested.
earlier. This one was kind of just a different one because we had such a long conversation on it, so I apologize for not including that in here.
I do have one clarification question
Sure.
on page, I think it was 25, but at any rate, it's on the bid document for the low bidder. With respect to the alternates,
It doesn't really, I don't
they listed
know.
numbers but not circled whether it's add or deduct. Can we interpret that as deduct?
No, we cannot. It's an ad. We did clarify that.
I don't know, I looked for all that
Nice
too,
try.
trying to see what they were pouring, how thick they were, what they were removing.
If they're sealing the concrete with these bids.
I
Raspberries all over the place.
Mhm.
Give me 1 second. If it's permissible, can I provide that document to the board and have it attached to this meeting agenda for the RFP? It provides all the bid specs.
And there's a pretty big, yeah, I would like to see, cause I'm curious, how they had a $30,000, nearly 30,000, 20 something, for Apple Elementary between all the other bids and these guys, and then the difference in Spirit Lake Elementary and so that's why I was looking at the specs to see where, I mean, how could they, $30,000 is a lot.
And in talking with Architects West about that, sometimes if they think that's the school that you really want the work done at, they'll bid that one to get your business on it. It's just a contractor thing. Tim was part of these conversations as well as part of the bid opening and the entire RFP process, and he did agree. He used to actually do bid writing for asphalt and concrete, and so it was a tactic that they used if they felt like a school that was one of the schools that we really wanted done. They would sometimes build in a discount on that one just so that the business would go their way. So I anticipate that's why. Everybody bid on the exact same specifications, and like I said, if it's permissible, I'll provide it to our board clerk to attach to tonight's meeting and send you all of that. It was on the website. I just apologize for oversight that it didn't make it into this.
Don't attach it to tonight's agenda, cause it's already, it wouldn't be a real time, you
Right.
can just give it to us, I guess, or next
Okay.
one or something. There's
problem.
such a huge discrepancy in some of the numbers that,
I did have that same question, Trustee
Yeah.
Grissom, and that was the explanation is a lot of the times they'll kind of build in a discount if they, Spirit Lake, the stairs alone at Spirit Lake are a big thing, and so, but knowing that they all bid on the exact same thing, the only thing that we're not 100% sure on because we didn't tear up the concrete is what's underneath, so that's where I can anticipate potentially a contingency on that if there's something underneath the concrete that we weren't
That could come
expecting.
as a change order.
Yes,
Well,
that would
that's-
come as a change order.
Yeah, that's gonna be almost all of it, guaranteed.
Mhm, yeah,
Because
um,
the base is not, otherwise you wouldn't have failure, a lot of the
Yeah.
failure that
So,
you're seeing.
based on the budget, or the amount submitted with this contractor, the contingency, the normal contingency for a project like this would still keep us under budget with what the district has budgeted for this. So I'm confident that we would have the funds for the change orders, to facilitate the work.
What did we have budgeted for this?
Oh, yeah, maybe you can ask.
Sorry.
It's a little over 600,000.
Yeah, because we have the two different
Two
dollar
different
amounts.
amounts,
Yeah, we set aside money from both kind of facility levy years, for this. So it's a little over, I think it was like 615,000. So.
You can't really ever totally understand the differences from one bidder to another.
Right, but in government contracting, you get that big of a discrepancy, I guarantee federal contracting, they're gonna wanna know why, because that's a red flag. Whenever you're looking at a federal contract, if there's that much of a discrepancy, that's why I was like, well, you know, but, I mean, if they all bid off the same specs and they understand, I mean, I would have asked them why that was there, why did they do that?
All of these companies did attend a pre-bid meeting, and all of these companies walked the site with Tim and Architects West and asked questions. I mean,
All at the same time?
All at the same
Okay.
time. Everybody was there,
Everybody had the
and we
same
didn't
question.
have individual one-offs.
Conversations.
It was everybody there. The addendum went out with answers to the questions just to make sure everybody had the same exact information. I will say this process, this time around, I was so excited to receive 6 responses. Previously, we had only received 2. And they were competitive bids. And I mean, we haven't had, in my experience here at the district, this level of a response to one of our RFPs in my 2-year tenure here. So it was exciting to actually have people that wanted to work with the district and spent the time to actually go through and do the spec walk and all of that and provide a good quote for the services.
Right.
So, and I do want to remind you that the initial quotes that we received last fall were upwards of $1 million each. And we did not have the level of detail that we had with this RFP process. So I know that there's some frustration on how long it took, but I do feel like we did our due diligence with this. And I will reiterate that I am not a contractor. And that's why I wanted to make sure we did this right.
I just wanna make sure Lakeland is in the base bid because.
Yep, nope, both Lakeland schools are in the base bid. And I'm just excited we can do all 6 schools for the amount of money that we set aside.
Move to approve a little bit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
Will you
you.
get us the specs that were sent
Yes,
out to them,
absolutely.
please? Thank you.
Next up, we have the LMS parking lot entrance safety alternation proposal.
Did I spell that wrong?
Nope.
Okay. I did print these. They're part of the board packet, but I know sometimes those are hard to see, so I just wanted to make sure you guys had
Thank
a
you,
printed
yes.
copy.
Yes, because I kept scroll back.
I know. It's a pretty big visual, so I just wanted to kind of walk you through. As part of our process of looking at all these concrete projects, we identified a safety issue at Lakeland Middle School.
It's been there for years.
It's been there for years.
I say, did you identify the one at Apple too?
We're working.
They have a huge safety issue.
Yeah. So this one, because of the highway and all of the stuff that runs right through town and the kids walking, and then the traffic backup, it's a rough morning commute and afternoon commute through the city of Rathdrum. The Architects West did work with Tim and I to kind of identify what we could potentially do to ease that issue and then provide more safety to the students and the staff at Lakeland Middle School. That is this plan that you're looking at before you. One of the things that my printout doesn't show because I couldn't get it on big enough paper, we're looking at adding an exit at Lakeland High School, so you know the drop-off zone. you would be able to go straight out on the highway.
Right.
And turn out there instead of having to loop back through the parking lot. So that alleviates some of the congestion at this intersection.
You're gonna have to explain that better.
So if you scroll to page.
You're talking about Lakeland High School.
Yep, so I'm talking about both Lakeland schools, but if you scroll to page.
It's basically on that curve where you go for the parking, like if you're just temporary parking, and then, or if you're a board member, you go there, it's easier to get in that way, and you park there along the concrete.
So on the
and stay
student
there.
side of Lakeland High School, you have the drop-off zone in front of the school. And right now, you drive around that drop-off zone, and then you go back through the parking lot, come down the hill by the baseball field, and you can either go straight left or right. Instead of coming back through the parking lot, we're looking at opening up the fence and taking that drop-off lane straight out to the road. I anticipate ITD will say it can be a right-hand turn only and not both.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, ITD was on board with everything that we've done so far. Tim approached them with this because we were working with them on the State Highway 54 access for Timberlake High School. So Tim approached them with this. In the past, ITD has not been receptive to any changes to Lakeland Middle School's entrances and exits. This time, they were in full support of this. We still would have to go through the hearing, which is why I'm bringing it to the board to ask for permission to do the surveying and everything that we need to do to bid it out, to know the cost of it, and to get ITD to officially approve it. But based on this preliminary documentation, they were in support of this change. So to walk everybody through it, we would move the current existing crosswalk that goes from the high school to the middle school. We would move it south of that intersection so that right turning traffic would be able to freely exit the school without having to wait for crosswalk.
Before you leave that, the problem I see with that is all the walking traffic that's going to have to go to that crosswalk has to cross that entrance exit from the high school.
That's currently manned by crossing guards. They're not allowed to cross without someone crossing them. And so...
No, yeah, but if you make that change, then all the walking traffic from the high school has to cross this way, one way or the other.
Yep, and that same walking traffic has to cross the LMS entrance that parents are currently using as well. So we're just shifting where they're crossing, but
So.
yeah, just south, because either way they're crossing across turning traffic currently. So the recommendation for that was supported by our school SROs for both schools, and then ITD. And City of Rathdrum, I forgot to say, also has looked at these plans and is in agreement with them. So we would, the entrance that's currently there for student drop-off where you come into Lakeland Middle School is that far back entrance. That would become a staff and bus only entrance, which actually would help with our transportation zone back there and our buses. Then the kids would have a sidewalk put in so that they're not, if they're coming from the high school over to the middle school, because we do have a lot of that. A lot of our high school students bring their siblings and they walk over to the middle school in the morning. There would be a new sidewalk that would be placed to meet up so they're not crossing the traffic that's now turning in like they currently are. There is an approach already on the highway right there where we're proposing to put this. There's already an approach kind of there. So we would have to just put the asphalt in to bring that new entrance. Huh?
There used to be.
Yeah, so we're just trying to reopen that opening. You would have one-way traffic through the parking lot. They would exit now where the reader board sign is. We will not have to relocate the reader board sign. That will be able to stay, but they'll be able to exit south of the existing crosswalk. Right now, if you're taking a right out of the school, like I do every morning, you're crossing straight into the crossing guard. And it's scary sometimes because you're looking to make sure you can go, and then all of a sudden they've got the cross light.
Right.
So this will increase safety for students. That middle entrance and exit will be closed and will be fenced and landscaped by our facilities department. your kid off for some reason, you'll be able to kind of loop back through.
Yeah.
But in this design, you would only have students crossing from that existing middle crosswalk. You would have them crossing to get to the school. This design also aligns with the work that we're doing with the concrete already, so there will be no changes to the scope of work for the concrete bids that you just approved. There's no change to the scope of work because this aligns with that as well.
Do we have any kind of anticipation on what the cost is gonna be?
No, which is why I'm trying to get dollar amounts for this. I did talk with the state. We are allowed to use the school modernization facilities funds, especially because it is a safety issue. We would be able to use those funds, which we did receive more than we were expecting for those, because we're closer to 20 million than the 18 million that we initially received. So I guess I'm just coming to you asking for permission to continue walking this project forward so that we can scope it out and get a true cost of it, so that I can bring that back to the board for permission or approval.
Look at from the crosswalk, the existing crosswalk out front of the junior high school across the highway,
That will stay.
that's a crosswalk.
Yeah, that will stay. And the one down here by John Brown will also stay. So the only one we're proposing to relocate is the one right between the high school and the middle school, that walkway there. And the only thing I'm not 100% sure on with ITD, we had added that exit at Lakeland High School. So that's the only thing I'm not 100% sure on, whether or not they'll be on board with that. I anticipate if they are, they would make it right turn traffic only, because it's really close to the stoplight there.
My guess is they're gonna say it's too close to the stoplight.
Which is fine. I'm fine with that as well, if we could do the rest of this.
That's just a guess, based on.
That's another, besides weeds, the Lakeland Middle School parking lot is another one I get a lot of community phone calls on.
No, the revisions that are proposed are really quite good.
And I apologize that this is the first you're hearing of it. It just kind of came organically through reviewing all of the things that we've been reviewing in relation to the concrete projects and the school modernization funds. So.
Just for giggles, has there ever been any conversation about maybe putting a walking bridge there, where we're moving the, I mean, I don't know what the cost involved with that would be, but to where the children can safely cross the highway without having to cross the highway because they're going up over the bridge.
I anticipate that would cost more. And I think
Well, I
we
know
would
it
have
would cost more.
this.
but-
I think this would. No, there has not been any conversation about that.
Okay.
We could ask.
Okay.
I did get some assurances that if we were able to get through the ITD process with this, that it is something that they think that we can complete shortly after school starts.
Okay.
And be able to do the work this calendar year to get this all shifted around, as long as we can get through the ITD process really quickly.
Okay.
So I can add that. I have high hopes for this one. They're aware of the project.
Unless you have an end.
I feel like Tim might have an in it, so they're anticipating, if the board does give direction to continue down this road, they're anticipating it coming through.
Move to approve it, to go forward.
You're moving to approve the proposed concept and allow for survey work and the official plan.
For them to go forward with their plan.
Okay. Just making sure we're verifying.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to the THS LHS football equipment request.
This is a pretty standard annual request.
Right.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a harmonious second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. See, usually I would be laughing over
The
some of
seconds,
these.
the
Yes.
seconds are.
Yes. Next item is the LEA request to begin IBB. Okay. So they want to begin starting Tuesday, May 22nd, which would be the day after the levy.
2 days. wouldn't be Tuesday, May 22nd.
It's Thursday, that
Yeah,
should
it
say
should say
Thursday.
Okay.
Levy is
May
the 20th, and then we have a board meeting on the 21st, so this would be Thursday, May 22nd. And I don't have all of the details, and Jessica is confirming, but we will definitely be on the time crunch in the sense of then what she has to get ready for the budget hearing, so it's kind of time is going to be of the essence for sure.
I
Wow.
move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And can we ask, the document that was provided to support has like things cut off, and trying to figure out what it is actually that we have other than just a bunch of numbers? What they're
At least
supporting.
column headers would have been nice, because you've got all these columns and you don't know what they actually represent.
No, you don't. And it, you know, I had to do my own math to figure out where the 177 came from, but I figured it out.
Are you talking about the 177
Yeah,
attachment?
he
Okay.
attached something.
Screenshot. Looks like it's screenshot. of
Oh,
some
Yeah, that's
okay.
why it's
web
cut off.
page or something,
Okay.
yeah.
So it would have just been nice to have a little bit more thoroughness on that. Okay, and then next item is the assistant superintendent job description.
Move to approve.
Second.
The only thing I would like to add in is, it says, a master's degree or higher. I don't think we should go down. I think we should say that, a doctorate is preferable, because that's what we currently are used to. I mean, I know it says masters or higher, but,
Trustee Grissom, can I address this? Brooke Cunningham, Director of HR. Yes, Dr. Pasley does have her PhD, but your superintendent does not. And so this has not been a typical where we've required our assistant
Right.
superintendent to have a PhD, and I think it's kind of.
I'm not asking for a requirement, I'm asking for a preference, because in my brain I'm thinking at some point our superintendent's gonna retire, and
Sure.
I don't think it's that far off. It would be nice if we could start thinking long-term, and this person would end up being the superintendent was my thought. That was my only,
So would you just like it worded something,
yes, well, I mean.
doctorate is preferred, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I understand where we are with the current superintendent, but, I mean, she also had 30-plus years in the district, so that was, can't, that was my only thing. Other than that, it looks,
I think I asked if we could put running a building and a budget
Principalship.
principalship. Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that the at least 5 years successful experience in administration?
No, because you could be an administrator and be a athletic director and not run a budget or anything. So,
Well, our athletic directors do have to run their budget.
yeah, but I'm talking
Yeah.
a
No, I know.
school, a whole school.
yeah, that was what we talked about
Yeah.
last time.
Well, if you've got valid certification as a superintendent, you've got background in all those areas. You can't get a superintendent certificate without having gone through all the coursework required for that, including school finance.
I'm not talking about coursework, I'm
Yeah,
talking
it's-
about experience.
I know what you're talking about, I'm just saying that
Just because you're trained in something doesn't mean you have experience in it.
Converse would be not to have the education, but have training. Put anything you want in there and I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah, or you could just put building administration. Would that work? Building administration or?
But I think a principal is, I mean, the principal is at the top.
Yeah.
And I think that's where at the, if it's administration, it could be anybody, it doesn't have
Right.
to be a principal.
Right.
So, and I think that there should be some principal experience involved in for the superintendent or assistant superintendent.
Yeah, no, the one,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I had written in the one that I come up with, that's how I worded it too.
With what?
Principal,
Okay.
building administration principal. I also lean more heavily on our community, but that's fine, 'cause this is, I guess, just cookie cutter kind of thing. So add the preference in the education and the building administration or principalship, 5 years,
Yeah.
principal. I think those are good traits to have. I mean, we're always
I think they're
wanting to,
necessary.
bring the students up to higher expectations. I think we should do the same for the leadership.
So just
Yeah.
to clarify on, under qualifications number 2, you'd like it to state at least 5 years successful experience as a building principal?
Yes.
Yes.
And then under number 3, where it says master's degree or higher, you can just put, doctorate preferred.
Do you guys need to vote on that change?
Oh, we can, it's an admin thing, we can just say administratively, I mean, that can be part of the motion.
Yeah.
Are we good with that?
So may I ask another clarifying question? If you guys go ahead and make that motion, and we make those changes, can I at least post this tomorrow? So we
Yes.
can,
Yeah.
I'm starting to panic. I
Absolutely.
talked to Lynn's husband today, and I told him that I was going to kidnap her and put her in a closet so she ends up missing, and I'm probably gonna be the first suspect. So I just wanna get it posted.
We just admitted that online.
Yeah.
Actually, what she said was she was gonna put cockroaches at my house and, yeah.
So she can sell it.
Ouch. That's yucky.
It's aggressive.
So I'll make a motion to approve the assistant superintendent job description with the modifications to the qualification in point 2 and point 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries. Okay, moving on to the STEM Charter MOU. Keeps coming back. It's like the Energizer Bunny. Okay, so I don't remember where we were at with this. I know that.
Lisa's recommendations to discontinue. And I think last time it was up, there was 1 or 2 board members had that same consensus just based on what
Okay.
insurance.
So Lisa's recommendation is to not continue the practice of letting STEM Charter use our buses. Okay.
Based on the attorney and the insurance carrier and the overall liability for the district.
Do we need to have any conversation on this?
No. I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation.
I'll second that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
So we have 4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
How long have we had this relationship with them? Since they
Sounds
started,
like
right?
since
14 years.
2014.
Since Dr. Reynolds was the superintendent.
Moving into discussion, building staffing with/without levy, there's nothing there. So, okay, I think there, was it the,
That's fine, we can wait for
Somewhere.
documentation, that way we don't have to,
yeah,
I figured it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll wait
Okay.
for,
Chair
all right,
Thompson.
yeah.
it's just a discussion item, so.
Right, it is.
Jessica Grantham, CFO. I apologize, this is a big lift and it's coming as part of the budget process.
Okay.
But I do wanna say, just to kinda ease some of the concerns, that with the resignations and the retirements and the category 1 staff that we have currently, I'm confident that I'm looking at our HR director, Brooke Tickham, I'm confident that we would not have to go to a RIF process, because we have enough people that are leaving the district or would leave the district as a category 1, that we would not have to go to a RIF if the levy were not to pass.
Okay.
So I don't have the numbers for you this evening, I apologize for that. We're working through the position control process, but we did not budget that way last year, and so I'm trying to get a snapshot in time to give you, because we've had, movement this year, to be able to provide that. This is where we're at, this is where we potentially will be, and this is what it would look like with or without. So it's just taking time to go through that individually, and I apologize. I've got 2 budgets on my plate and all the other things, fun things I brought to you tonight, so it will get done through the budget process.
I will just add to this, this was the first year when Trustee Bain mentioned doing positional staffing. This was probably the most streamlined process as far as looking at staff and really going building by building. Brooke and Jessica both spent a lot of time of meeting individually with principals and then bringing the whole team together with all of the directors, and so really streamlining the process and then being able to fill the back end if we made some decision with one building and doing the follow-up. So by far this has been in my 4 years at the district office, and I would say as 10 years as an administrator in the district sitting in the principal role, by far the best process for looking at staffing from my perspective. It just felt like everybody was on the same page, far more collaborative. It took a lot of work on the front end for the 2 of them, but I think we will reap the benefits, and you will see the benefits of that going into IBB and then the end of the year. So they did a great job.
And not to jump ahead, but I did address that kind of in my updated on the budget process. I anticipate continuing to use this. This is something that I wanted to do as well. It's the right thing to do from a transparency process. I think the district used to do it a long time ago, and it's just a practice that fell to the wayside. I will say during this process, we did look at anticipated enrollment for next year and did adjust numbers based on that as well, just to make sure that we were truly looking at what does it take to be bare bones based on the kids that we anticipate will have next year. Granted, there's always fluctuations as we get enrollment numbers in, but we were very, very conscientious going through this of, do we really need to fill this position, or do we wait to see what that looks like for fall? Like, can we manage until that start of the school year to see where the numbers head? So that was the process that was done. It was, in my estimation, very, very well received by everybody that participated in the process. So I'm excited for the collaboration that happened through that.
That's the same thing I'd been asking for a few years when I was.
Well, now we have it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, because every time we went to do something, that's why I was always so surprised that we didn't have it, because it's like, it's such a huge organization. How do you not have that at your fingertips?
This makes it very easy for us to identify exactly. We'll know the FTE, we'll know the number of hours.
Right.
So if somebody wants something more than currently is approved, that comes to the board every time.
It also allows equitable services throughout our building, so it doesn't feel like there is this
We went through a whole custodial burden matrix. We looked at paraeducator hours. We looked at school clerical hours. I mean, everything was really tied back to the students that we serve.
Good.
So it's really truly a right sizing of what our buildings have to make sure that we're being equitable and that the students are getting the services that they need with the appropriate staff. So,
And of course, a
teachers.
huge portion of that will change every year though.
Yes.
Because
Right.
there's no way you can anticipate how many
Right.
IEPs you're gonna have, how
Right,
many
right.
504s.
And we did build in
But-
a couple of vacancies, and I apologize, I'm kind of jumping ahead on another agenda item. But we did build in some vacancies for that, where we anticipate, well, we might need some more paraeducators in this building. So there's a little bit of I don't want to call it a pool because we put them with a specific building, but if that building ends up not doing it, I can maybe transfer that vacancy over to a building that does.
Right.
We did build in a little bit of contingency just to make sure that we had that so that we were able to move quickly. When we have a need for a paraeducator, it may not be able to wait 2 weeks to come to the board for approval. So we just try to build in a small amount of cushion, and I can identify how many vacancies we budgeted, just so that you're aware of that through the approval process. So.
Perfect.
Yay, sounds great.
It does. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we have an SLP update.
I wish we had more information on this because we have what the contract was, but we don't know how many persons that was, how many students were being served, like there's no breakdown. It's like, okay, so if we can hire 2, but is that all we had before was 2 with the, okay.
Yeah. Kelsey Badger, Federal Programs Director. So exciting news that we actually got in-person SLPs to apply in the district. So that was exciting news. Went through the interview process, excellent candidates, both with many years of experience. So that was great. We were able to offer them both, and we do have letters of intent signed. So that was great that we're going to have that. We do have one SLP that is moving to a different district. So basically one of those SLPs would replace her full-time position. Then we have one SLP that will decrease the amount of contracted services that we have. Currently we have 4 people that we're contracting services with. No one's a 5-day contracted service, but they do multiple schools in different areas. And so we are able to eliminate 4 days of the contract service. So currently with our contract services, we pay our highest month when we are in school the most days, $50,000 a month for these contracted services. Our SLP caseloads in general for the whole district is 300 students. And so they're servicing quite a bit of those students because we do have, like I said, 4 of them. So they're in and out. So this will eliminate the contract by 4 full days as of right now. We're trying to restructure a little bit of things, but SLP services is one area that is increasing, especially preschool students coming in. We do have the influx of COVID, and so a lot of families, unfortunately, we are seeing are not a lot of communication because they have tablets in front of them. So we are in majority of our students that qualify for preschool have language or speech.
So we eliminated the days, but how many bodies is that and how many students are we serving? And the other thing is do we not receive any reimbursement from SLP? Isn't that a Medicare, Medicaid?
Yep,
okay.
yep.
So every time we say we eliminate the money, it's really just a flow through because we're billing out for the services that we're providing. So even though we're paying, we're still billing to get the money back from. So I would rather make sure that we have enough, instead of being slim, I would just want to make sure that we have enough people to service the students that have the needs because, it is something we can bill for.
Yeah, if they have Medicaid.
Right.
Yeah, and so.
And if not, we should be helping them get there, if they qualify, right?
And there are some families that choose not to do Medicaid, which we ask them often to do that, but that's their choice as well. But that is offered all the time, and we have a great process to streamline that to go through and get them ready and get them on it. So we do have a lot of families that move from out of state, and we are on it right away to get them in. But I think the purpose that Superintendent Arnold put this together was Unfortunately, there is our pupil services that doesn't align, our salary matrix doesn't really align with our pupil services. And so other districts have different salary matrix, and so they are making quite a bit more in other districts, and so I think that was the intent of her bringing this to you. The two SLPs that we did bring, like I said, came with quite a bit of experience, and we would lose them to a contract service if we weren't able to be competitive with what they were previously making. So I think that's why she brought this to you, is because we had to go outside of the negotiated agreement and place them on a step that we wouldn't typically place them on based off of our salary matrix.
And we're hoping that through this IBB process we address it, because it gives us the ability to be competitive, because otherwise we're going to pay more, and Medicaid is Medicaid, but we will pay more for contracted services versus just being able to be competitive with our neighboring districts to get in person. A lot of the contracted services are online, it's Zoom, so you know, I think they try to do a good job, but parents definitely feel like there oftentimes can be a compromise in the services being provided, so we're just trying to fit the needs of the students to the best of our ability. So,
and what some people don't understand, when we have a virtual, we have to hire a para, because someone has to be in the room with the student while they're doing a virtual. So not only are we paying for the contracted service, then we're also paying for an SLP para to be in the room while
But what
that
is
service
that
is being
para,
provided.
wouldn't we be able to bill for the para, because now this, we would have to write that in, right? Because now this is an accommodation that has to be met, so there again, we would still be billing for.
Unfortunately, Medicaid has removed para, SLP para. Last full school year, we were able to bill, and they did work through the summer, and they took that away from us. So that was a huge decrease for our Medicaid this year. We're able to bill for SLP assistance, and they do have a certificate in that communication field, but just our paras we're not able to bill for.
But wouldn't it, so what would be the difference if it was an accommodation with having the para or whomever there with the student when they are taking the test, versus the same thing as a para there when the student is getting the I mean, how is that different?
Yeah, so it just a little bit of different, I think, and not getting into too much of the weeds of it, but we are able to bill for students with behavioral needs, and it's written in their IEPs that they have a behavior, and it's a part of that, and it's part of the service plan that we're working on that. Whereas what you're saying is if they're sitting with them in the therapy session, it has to be written in their IEP that we could bill for that, which Medicaid doesn't accept that. So we can only bill for the therapist if they have Medicaid, whereas we can bill for paras if they have behavioral needs, but SLP doesn't count for
But
that.
if the student has the accommodation for the test taking and somebody has to sit there while they take the test, whether it's make sure they understand or read it to them or something, they don't see the same thing as the para sitting there with the person helping them do the SLP?
No, not all students that require SLP services need that type of assistance. So it's not, they don't need behavior assistance, they don't have an FBA, they don't have a BIP, so we can't bill for that service. Under the umbrella of speech and language, using a para.
So how do we say that they do need that? Because obviously they would need that.
Well, they need that only in a virtual setting, but if they have an in-person.
Well, that's all that we can give, and I mean, yeah, I think I would go back to the state on that. But anyways, I would feel better if we actually had some numbers and, you know, the one-to-one. I mean, this really doesn't tell much of anything.
Well, and like I said, I think the purpose of the superintendent, what she put together, was just showing you that we had to go out of the scope of sequence of the negotiated agreement.
But it doesn't, okay, but it doesn't give me anything. It doesn't say anything about $50,000 per month we were paying, and
I think she's just trying to explain to you that we pay currently right now $50,000 a month. We were thinking about maybe doing a stipend based off of the salary matrix, placing them, and then what is the difference between what our salary matrix would place them at to what they would like to make.
Okay.
And so then the difference of that is that we're just trying to show you and be transparent that us
Right, but she
offering.
didn't show that, that's what I'm saying, so maybe she can give us that information so we can say that. Like all she said was $50,000 a month we saved, and that's
And
it.
what I want to be transparent about that, we're not saving $50,000 because we're not eliminating our contracts.
Well,
We
she
can't.
said saving the full $50,000 in contracted services is her exact words.
Well, down
By
below.
hiring these two, we would have been saving in contracted
Right.
services, but we just found out that one of our
SLP.
Right, one is
in-person
going away.
SLPs is taking, yeah.
Right, so I'm just
So-
saying if I had more numbers to what we were doing, that was all.
So,
Also, it's a little misleading because we're not actually saving the full 50,000 if we
No.
hire
Mm-mm.
somebody, obviously.
No.
You know, maybe we're paying them $5,000 a month. For 2 would be 10, so maybe we're saving 40, just
Yeah.
as an example.
So would you like a grid of how many SLPs we have, how many students they currently serve, and then?
No, I just want, this doesn't show me anything. How many people did we have? How many people were they serving? What was the cost? And then here's, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't
Right.
show me
A
line
comparison.
item of what we had and line item of what we're saving or.
We're estimating it to be around 4,000 a month, but we can definitely prepare a schedule.
Yeah, if we just had something to see, there's.
4,000 a month that we'll be saving, that's it?
Well, if you multiply that out by the year, yes.
It's really only one SLP because the other SLP is replacing.
Okay.
Which is
All
still
right.
a
Well,
significant
all right.
savings.
What I would like to share with the whole board is that I received a phone call from Lisa, who wanted me to give approval for her to hire these 2 SLPs, that we would be paying approximately $18,000 above where they would place on our salary schedule. My response to her, number one, was she said we'd have to do like an $18,000 stipend, but the board wants to go away from stipends. And first of all, I was kind of shocked on the whole thing, so I was just listening. My response to her was the fact that, well, if you're the superintendent and you're doing the hiring, you just need to update the board with what it is that you're doing, because this is for next year. This does not impact this year's budget. It's next year's budget. And she told me that we would be saving approximately $400,000 and that she felt the board would really buy into that. So now that I'm hearing it's only $4,000 a month, that's a little concerning. I'm not quite sure why the math is so far off, because, you know, I said, hey, if you're willing to save the district $400,000, you just need to inform the board of what you're doing. That because you're the superintendent, you should be able to make these decisions and choices and explain why. Which also, I was not aware, because the language within the negotiated agreement is quite poor, and I have stressed that. The negotiated agreement actually covers like speech language pathologists. It covers all pupil service. What is it called?
Personnel.
Pupil?
Yeah.
Pupil.
There's a title
Yeah.
because it's
Pupil
in
services.
services. Thank you.
Pupil services.
But they're
yeah.
technically considered certified.
Right, because they have certification to be speech language pathologists, not necessarily certified teachers. And so because I said there is nothing in our negotiated agreement that addresses this. And when you look at the statute, it clearly gives you definitions about what it's all encompassing. Because I was like, well, why can't you put them where they need to go? If that's what needs to be done, why can't you do that? And she's like, the negotiated agreement won't let me do that. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense, because I don't see anywhere in the negotiated agreement that it actually talks about this, because everything is targeted specific to teachers. And so she said, well, sometimes they teach groups. And so, I mean, I was trying to be empowering of Lisa, saying, you are the superintendent, you should be able to make this decision. And she was backing her choice up by saying, we were going to be saving $400,000 by hiring these 2 people, based on the savings of $50,000 a month, which I was going to ask, do we only have SLPs for 8 months? Because that's the only way I could come up with $400,000. But now that you're saying it's only about $4,000 a month, that's rather a little far off, but to the $400,000.
That's why I say I think if she just gives us the numbers, it'll all make sense. to me.
Yeah, clear explanations
So
would be
I'm-
good.
Yeah. I wasn't there for the conversation, so I'm not exactly sure. I think what we roughly could save by now having the 2 in person would be about $48,000 if we do. That's just 4,000 times 12 in my head.
Okay.
That's all.
Right.
In my head.
No, I understand.
The contracted services, the benefit of a contract service is that we do not pay benefits, obviously. We do not have to pay them during the summer. So they only work those months. So I mean, with breaks and stuff, roughly
Right.
maybe 8 months
Right.
to answer that
Okay,
question. But
okay.
no, they are with us day one of school to the end of school.
Okay.
But they do not get the extra days or the before days, like teachers do, because of the contracted service. So the day that the students start, they start.
Right.
Yeah, when we're not in school, snow days, they don't work, all that stuff, they don't get paid.
And I should preface, Lisa wanted us to hold an emergency meeting so that the board could vote on this. But I said, as the superintendent, and this is impacting of next year's budget, so my thought process would be, if this was the choice she wanted to make, just to update the board, because it's gonna be reflected in the budget. And that's why this is there, but it's not very well, at least articulated as to the whole
Board Chair Thompson.
premises
Can
of
I
this.
say something, please?
Sure.
HR Director Brooke Cunningham. And so I agree with you, in the negotiated agreement, we probably have some work to do, because all of our pupil services personnel, all of our nurses, all of our school psychs, they're all contracted on a teacher's contract. And so, yes, negotiated. And for me, Brooke doesn't like to color outside the lines very well. I'm very
know that.
black and white, and so I'm a rule follower. And so when we go into negotiations, negotiations is about all certified staff. So you are correct, during negotiations this year, maybe we need to change that language to certified staff instead of teachers.
Well,
if
we
it's
need
in
to,
there.
we
Just call what
need
the
to,
law calls it.
exactly.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah, I've looked at negotiated agreements or they're called master
Agreements and stuff,
whatever,
yes.
with other school districts. I mean, they have this whole introduction, they talk about who this agreement oversees and whatnot, and ours doesn't. We just jump right into teachers, and that's why I was caught off guard. And so then I went back to the statute, and I'm like, well, here it is, back over. So you can find it, but you got to look for it.
Sure.
And it bothers me that ours isn't that inclusive.
Yeah.
It's
So
It is, but we
this
do.
is such a statewide problem. I mean, this came up at the state legislative tour as far as SLPs and that type of thing. The contracted services are just astronomical,
Right.
and we do need to try to get away from them. And I can tell you, other school districts are actually going to that separate salary schedule for SLPs, school psychs. Post Falls kind of has a good one, and so we kind of worked the offer letters to where we were a bit more competitive with Post Falls. Otherwise, they were going to go there. And so during the negotiation process, we do need to come up with a separate salary schedule for these folks,
Right.
in order to recruit and get away from that contracted service.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in such a narrow box, and it's not clear. And I mean, it's clear for the teachers, but for everything else that it covers,
Sure.
it's not clear at all.
We need a North Idaho co-op where all the districts have their own co-op of SLPs, and we all just, share.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a really
They've
good
talked
idea.
about that, because Washington
Yeah.
does that, and that was mentioned on last Friday.
I just wanted to clarify, I feel like, I wasn't there for the conversation, but I think Lisa really felt like she really tries to stay within the lines of that negotiated agreement.
Mhm.
And so, making this decision to bump somebody up, 2 people up outside of that. And so how do we do that? Is it a stipend? Is it so I think her goal was that she was trying to be transparent in the sense of we'll bring a board meeting together, a special meeting, kind of explain where we're at. I do feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say myself and Kelsey were really pushing her and Brooke of we have to get out of contracted services, we have to get people, we have to get out of virtual services. And so she was trying to figure out all the ways that we could make this work, and we were going. So I do feel like I have to be transparent about that. We were being a little pushy.
Brooke, was the issue where to place these people on the existing salary schedule?
Yes, we've always placed them as we place teachers. We place based off of, we give them their years of experience. So like with SLPs and school nurses, it isn't necessarily experience in education, it's all their experience, all encompassing.
Yeah.
But we place them all on a salary schedule the same way. So that's why we need to come up with a separate salary schedule for these
Before
people.
you go there, did they fall off the end of the salary schedule? I don't.
They are at the very, we were able to, we had to place them beyond their years of actual experience in order to be competitive with other school districts who would take them away. So we colored outside the lines and got creative a little bit.
That's not very much different than what we did
Yeah.
when we went to the single column salary schedule.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
But wasn't it like a $10,000 to $12,000 difference potentially that the other district, something like that?
We would have had to have come up with like an $18,000
Yeah.
stipend if I placed them according to the negotiated agreement.
Yeah.
So.
So years of experience in the negotiated agreement, we can only accept a certain
It's
amount
very
that we
binding.
placed in. Yes. So when we have an SLP that's coming with 25 years of experience, what she's making currently in a different district, that maybe gives her 25 years, and we're only able to give 12.
Yeah, well, and that's only a step 8.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's
when
a
we're
big
interviewing
difference.
these people, are we not telling them what we can afford to pay them? Or are we hiring them and then trying to figure out what to pay them to keep them?
So I try not to have any conversations about salary. Brooke and I have had this conversation where I try not to get into the weeds of that because
Sure.
I don't want to promise us something that I can't promise them. So no, that is not it. Yeah, I can tell you that we've had, now this is the 3rd year of having contracted SLP services, and this is the 1st year that we've had in-district, we've had openings for 3 years, and this is the 1st year we had in-district candidates.
Yeah.
And so I did not cross my mind
Yeah.
because I knew it would be cheaper than what we currently are paying
Gotcha.
in that
Gotcha.
contract.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, for us,
I
that
was
was
just
the end
curious.
game.
Yeah.
If we go to contracted services, what we pay out at the end annually versus even if we gave them that 18,000, we save substantially more money. And so, and with the need being as high and with everyone, I mean, this is not just this is a nation problem.
Right.
They
For
don't
years.
have, yes, and they don't have incoming students going into those programs, and so we're gonna see that fall out for probably years to come. And so the moment we got some applicants, we were trying to jump on getting them in person, because again, in person is the contract.
Well, it
is
makes
just
sense, you know,
difficult.
fucking mind. What would be helpful to the board, I think, now that you know kind of what's
Coming.
coming in
Mhm.
place, based on the assumption of 50,000 a month for 8 months, 9 months, whatever. That's the contracted service money we're paying out. 2 individuals we're hiring are being hired at X number of salary. Combined together,
The comparison.
less,
Yep.
and show us what the real difference
Plus
is.
the SLP that's leaving.
Yeah,
Mhm.
We can get that for you.
I'm sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the state funding update, lots of fun information with that.
It was well put together.
Yes.
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
It's a lot
It was
of
very
information.
nice.
Thank you, Jessica.
But it was nice seeing
It
those
was-
comparisons of this is what it is now, this is
Mhm.
what, yeah.
And every bill that it related to and all, yeah, it was great. It was so clear, why and what was going on. Great information.
Thank you.
Any conversation we need to have?
I don't have
No, this is,
It's
Is what it is.
great
Yeah,
information, yeah. And just because we don't hold conversation doesn't mean that we don't value what you've done, because we've all read through it and we
Yes.
can understand it.
I'm totally fine with not having
Okay.
a conversation.
Good. Just wanting to make sure that you don't feel
No,
that we're
not at all.
short-sighted.
I'm-
Okay.
It
I'm
was
not- when you don't have
thorough
a-
enough that we don't have to,
Yeah.
have the back and forth.
All right, so moving on to the salary schedule adjustments for 2026.
We're gonna have a conversation.
Love that they're telling
This
us
will
what to
be a
pay people,
huge
but
part
they're
of
not.
the negotiated agreement conversation in IBB, and just
Yeah.
part of that whole thing.
Jessica Grantham, Chief Finance Officer, just to paraphrase what's happening here. With the change in the Idaho Code related to it's Idaho Code 33.1004B10. It states that the salary-based apportionment program compensation salary amount shall be adjusted by an amount equivalent to the salary-based apportionment adjustment for administrative and classified staff positions. So for this year, they added 5% to the administrative and classified positions. Now, reminding you, that's based on what they have in our salary-based apportionment formula, not what we actually pay people.
Right.
So we get a percentage of that through our support units, so we don't fully receive that full 5%.
Right.
So not everybody's not getting 5%.
Not everybody's
Not
getting
everybody.
5%. So, but in addition to that, they also required and changed the law to state that now we have to meet R1 minimums, which we've had to do, which is why we raised our salary schedule in 2023-24 to the $47,477 starting salary for our
Right.
certificated staff. We have to hit P1 and now AP1 minimums. The thing that really threw all of the business managers in the state for a loop, and I've alluded to this at previous meetings, is if you look at the information that I provided on page 2, the base salary in state statute last year was $41,500. Based on the state's interpretation of that 6359 that they gave us 2 years ago,
Right.
that they never
That
codified.
would, right, yeah.
They never codified it. It's just an
Yeah.
appropriation. It can
Right.
go away at any time, which is a little bit scary. But they didn't codify it. But the state interpreted that the intent of that appropriation was to be part of the base. So they have taken the residency, basically all cells of the career ladder, added the 6359 to it, and then added the 5% CEC on it.
Right.
So now our base salary for the district, instead of being $47,477, now has to go to $50,252 for a starting salary. And then that's going to have an impact across the board
Right.
on all of our certificated salaries, because if we have to raise one, we have to raise it all to keep the structure whole. So that is the thing that has provided me probably the most heartburn, headache, sleepless nights, is trying to walk this forward, because it is a significant increase. If we were to just add it to our existing salary structure that we currently have in place, it's a 5.85% increase to every cell, essentially, which is pretty significant. We also have the issue of having to move individuals to meet those minimums now. I identified 20 that would have to be moved for the AP, or for the P1 minimum, and I have 23 that would have to be potentially moved for the AP1 minimum. In some of those instances, looking at it, that would be a 44% increase for a couple of those individuals.
Whoa.
So it's a significant thing. So we've been looking at different ways to deal with this. And the thing is, I don't really have a choice. The state's mandating this, so we get to do it whether we want to or not.
Well, and it might be a time to actually look at where we are in comparison, now that we're up to $50,000 for minimum fresh out of college base. I mean, that's 10,000 more in just a few years. We might look at what the actual, the little, like you laid out here, the little example, which is like the code of what the different rungs are and how they get the incremental pay.
Yeah. So I did start, I have 2 different proposals that I've been working on, and it's taking a lot of time, because it's just taking a lot of time, because we're looking at all the factors.
So
and the one that I was really hoping to move forward to was mimicking the state career ladder. But as I continue to put dollars to that and people and placing them, I don't think we can afford it. So, I mean, ideally, there's many reasons to go to a structure that more mimics the career ladder, because it's easier for us to place people. If they move in those cells, they move on the career ladder or the salary schedule. If they don't move, they stay. So it kind of rewards people, and it encourages them to go on to get that advanced professional certification. However, like I said, the more I put the people to those potential items, it's not necessarily working out budget-wise for us. So I'm also preparing for IBB that, and then just increasing our current existing career ladder using that 5252 as the base. So it's been a lift, and it's been making this budget process that much more difficult, because I'm not really sure where we're going to land for salaries until we
Right.
get IBB done. The other tricky thing is with IBB being on the 22nd, I have to submit the budget for the budget hearing to the paper on the 23rd to get it published. So,
Right.
and I know we don't have to be fully through IBB. I'm just going to put in what I think it's going to be for the budget, and if we have to amend it, we have to amend it. But ideally,
No, you just live within the budget.
okay. But ideally, it would be nice if we had all of that dialed in so that the budget hearing doc was done.
Well, yeah.
So there's just so
There's
many-
a lot of moving pieces
There's so
this
many
year.
variables
A
this
lot.
year, and it makes
Yes.
it hard, especially when
Yeah.
this information from the state didn't come until I think April 15th is when we got the information, and it literally we had a webinar with the state to go over the changes, and I think every single person just kept going, wait, can we go back to this? Can we go back to this? Because they're essentially codifying that 6359 without actually having it in law, and so that was heartburn. We're, I would say, in a good place, if there is a good place in this, because we did raise our minimum salary to the 47,477 a couple years ago.
Yeah.
There are districts that are still at a minimum salary of
Yes.
41,500, and this is going to be extremely painful for them. I don't know how districts in the state of Idaho are going to be able to make these adjustments without dipping into fund balance, because this was not an anticipated thing. This was not information that we had when we went out to the levy. This is
Right.
this is something that is, I would say, for lack of a better word, this blindsided a lot of us. It was not anticipated.
Well, we'll just
The
have
good
to do
thing-
what we can do and.
Yeah. The good thing about it though is this is the basis for the salary-based apportionment. So with the salaries and they're increasing so much, that does increase our potential weighted average for our teachers. So in theory, that should mean more money for us. However, I am anticipating a decline in enrollment just based on the numbers that we currently have in school. We do have lower elementary numbers, and we have a big secondary class that's leaving us and graduating. So I do anticipate we'll be down about 200 students next year.
Okay.
So it kind of washes. So
Ish.
we're
Is
pretty
it?
flat. We're pretty
Ish.
flat this year. There's not much to work with, and I just want to again applaud the board in this district for all the work that we've done so far. I really truly feel, and I'm again stepping ahead to the next item, but I really truly feel like we've been working on this budget process since last November, and the collaboration that's gone into this has made this. Even though we have a moving target and so many variables this year, it makes it very easy to work through what we're working through because we have a very clear, defined plan.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that. Can I answer any questions on the salary structure changes?
I have none.
I don't have any more.
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have the budget process update final.
I have no questions on that.
I don't either. Oh, yeah, it is here. I am curious. On the, was it 2 million? Yeah, on the $2 million cut, where we're not actually cutting the 75,420 for the Skyward Learning software, we're just moving it out of the general budget and putting it under the technology budget. What in that budget are we reducing or getting rid of to accommodate that 75,420?
Jessica Grantham, Chief Finance Officer.
Mhm.
Chair Thompson, that state technology funds is what we've been using traditionally to replace Chromebooks.
Right.
With some of the changes that we're having, we're just shuffling, and if we do purchase Chromebooks, there'll just be less Chromebooks purchased because
Okay.
we're using that now for
Okay.
Essentially,
and it really, if you look at the letter of the law
Mhm.
to receive those state technology funds, that Skyward should have probably always been charged there because
It
part
should
of
have.
getting it is
Yeah.
having an ERP system.
Right.
It was moved into the general fund because it was able to afford it, and that allowed us to do additional things for the classroom. But in all intents and purposes, that's really where it belongs. So
Right.
although it's not a cut, it's a cut to the general fund because it's not going to be part of the general fund budget anymore. So, the only other thing I did want to kind of touch on is I had an anticipated 5% increase on workers' comp insurance.
Right.
I did receive a letter from this,
The
State Insurance Fund, SIF, today. I anticipate that will be fairly flat, so I'm not anticipating that
Good.
5% now. So there's a
Good.
small win, I guess,
That's good.
in all of this.
We'll take it.
So,
Well, but you're also anticipating the 8% on the liability insurance, which maybe it won't be that much.
I'm
Who knows?
hopeful.
Yeah.
I mean, 10% is kind of, we were told 5 to 8, 10%, so I'm hedging on 8.
Okay.
This is, like I said, probably been one of the most nerve-wracking processes. Again, I'll just go back and say that our district administration, our district leadership, this board, we have literally opened all the curtains, pulled all the closet doors
Yeah.
open. We have literally done everything we can in our due diligence to make
Right.
this process as smooth as possible. So I can't thank everybody enough for the amount of work that every individual that's been part of this process has done. I know that I've put countless hours into it, but I know that there's others that have had to do the same in order to come to these meetings prepared and stuff. So I want to thank everybody for the collaboration, again, that we've had in this district to put all hands on deck and get behind a plan that we can move forward with. So,
Well, thank you for calling that out.
I have no questions.
I don't either.
I just would like to clarify, do you anticipate needing another budget workshop, or are we okay to just move forward with the information that we have to a budget hearing?
I don't know, I think that depends on the levy.
Well, and even then with the levy, really we have all of those cuts outlined. I think.
Well, I think we would have to, what do you mean all those cuts outlined? What we
The-
have in the
Mhm.
the levy language?
Yeah, that's 7.52.
Yeah, but could we really afford to cut all that? I think the board would still need to meet and decide if that's really what they wanted to do or not. I mean, if it, I'm sure it's gonna pass, I mean, I don't anticipate that it's
I'm
not.
thankful for your optimism.
But that would be my,
I think we've been pretty.
Well, we have a meeting that.
21st, very next day.
The very next day,
Mhm.
yes.
So we should be able to sort things.
yeah.
So I guess I will add an agenda item to that meeting just to, in case we need to have additional budget conversations, so I literally am gonna have 3 days after the levy to finalize this stuff, so, I just wanna make sure that we have all our ducks in a row so that we can finalize, so that we can have appropriate docs for the budget hearing.
Yes.
Thank you.
We would assume at that meeting you'll have the budget, in essence, outlined at that point.
Yes, and it's just the matter of which budget A or budget B that
A or
we're
B.
publishing, yeah.
Yep.
But if there's any changes to that, I need direction from the board within those 3 days after
Oh,
the
yeah,
levy
absolutely.
to make those changes.
So if we can look at that A budget,
Mhm.
that night, I think we
Yeah.
can do that.
What happens if we don't submit it on time?
There's a lot of statutes behind that, so that I have to by statute publish something in
Right,
the paper.
right.
So I can budget, last year we did make an adjustment to our budget, we'll just have to republish after the fact.
Yeah.
Which is fine, I just wanna make sure I'm moving forward with the best one.
I was thinking they
for
push us
public.
all the way to the line
Yeah,
and almost not enough time and then
I
it's like
did
they should
outline
give you more days.
that, and I think
Yeah,
that March.
you know?
I wish it worked this way. And really, truly, the hard thing is with this late date in May, at least in November, the election is on the first Tuesday. So,
Right.
I mean, there's time to work there. With it being the third Tuesday in May, it just is really difficult with the state statutes outlining everything related to the budget process. In our March financial facts newsletter, I outlined every single Idaho code and the dates that are associated with the budget process. There are so many things that we have to tick and tie against.
Right.
You have to have this meeting no later
Right.
than this date and that date. And I mean, it really, you have to sit down with a calendar and outline exactly when everything needs to hit in order for us to make this happen. So we can always adjust the budget at that June 11th meeting. We would just have to republish And then that budget's just due to the state by July 15th. So
Okay.
we have time. I just, in an effort to be completely transparent with the community and not have to keep republishing and have questions about transparency, because we get a lot of those even though everything's out there for them, I just would like to be as clean as possible if we
Yeah.
can.
Absolutely.
Well, and to not be pushed up against the wall in
Yeah.
time, and it seems like
Right, that's
we've
what I'm
always
saying.
been in that
Yes.
position where we're
Yes.
just scrambling
Every
last
year.
minute.
Yeah.
So
Every
it's
year.
good that if
Yeah.
we can.
Losing the 2 additional levy dates, I mean, I would have rather they take the May one than the March one,
Well,
personally.
even still, we
Yeah.
have those years, like that one year, the legislators, they stayed, and they didn't even finish till the end of April.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the state didn't even have everything on the website, and we were guessing,
Right.
literally, we were guessing
Yeah.
what they were gonna do.
Yep, no, I
I mean,
get
that's
it.
just craziness.
And I just wanna remind everybody that a budget is our best guess plan. for
Right.
What we think is gonna happen. It's something we can amend, it's something we can adjust. Like, it's not an end all be all. Budgets are our plan at that point in time. So it's not a bad thing to amend them or adjust them. It's just,
Right.
I'm a perfectionist. I just want it done right. So, the first time. So, thank you so much for your
Yep,
time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright. Any other questions or comments on the budget, updated budget process? No. Okay. So on that, we have our dates to remember. Policy committee, long range planning committee, town hall meeting at Rathdrum Senior Center, which was recently added, and then the regular board meeting on May 21st. Is there any input for future agenda items? No.
Not that I can.
Okay. Alright, on that, I need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061B and D.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, we need a roll call vote.
Yes.
Trustee Bing?
Yes.
Chair Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Quimby?
Yes.
Vice Chair Grissom?
Yes.
And that is 8:11, and we're gonna go into executive session. I apologize for the yelling. We will take a 5-minute recess. Alright, so we've come out of executive session. There are no actionable items that need action on. So we'll go ahead and end the meeting. It's 9:32.